How dare you come here to disgrace me? I've told you you're not fit in this community. Are you insane?
He laughed as he poured red wine all over my elegant ivory gown in front of 400 elite guests, just because I asked for a front row seat. What he didn't know: I owned the entire company hosting the gala, and his entire career was about to end. Hello friends, welcome to our channel. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. My colleague said I wouldn't even reach 10,000 subscribers, but I believe stories like this deserve to be heard. Help me show them that these tales matter and comment where you are watching from. Let me take you back to where this nightmare started, 7 years ago when I married Marcus Hale. I was 25, fresh out of business school with a revolutionary tech patent. Marcus was 28, charming, working as a mid-level marketing manager. He pursued me relentlessly, told me I was brilliant. I believed him. What I didn't tell Marcus was that 6 months before our wedding, I'd quietly founded Vanguard Enterprises using my patent. I registered it under my maiden name, Alara Voss, kept it separate from our marriage. Why? Call it intuition. Within 2 years, Vanguard exploded. We secured contracts with Fortune 500 companies, government agencies. The revenue was staggering. I worked from a private office downtown, told Marcus I was doing consulting work. He never questioned it because he never really cared what I did. Meanwhile, his career stayed mediocre. But here's the twisted part: I was secretly funding our entire lifestyle. The penthouse he bragged about, I paid the rent. His luxury car, leased under Vanguard subsidiaries. His designer suits, bought with my money. I told myself I was supporting my husband, but the truth was I was enabling a man who was slowly becoming a monster. By year 3, Marcus had become unbearable. He'd complain about his job, how his boss didn't recognize his genius, how he deserved a promotion. I'd listen and offer support. He'd wave me off like I couldn't possibly understand real business. Real business. I was running a company worth over $200 million, and he thought I was too simple to understand office politics. The belittling got worse. He criticized everything. My clothes weren't stylish enough, my hair was too plain, I was gaining weight, I was boring at parties. When his colleagues came over for dinners I spent days preparing, he'd introduce me as just my wife Alara. Never mentioning my education, my work, anything that suggested I had value beyond being his accessory. His mother Catherine was even worse. She treated me like trash, made comments about how Marcus could have married a real society woman instead of someone so ordinary. She'd inspect my housekeeping, criticize my cooking, imply I wasn't good enough for her precious son. And Marcus? He never defended me. Not once. He'd actually join in sometimes, laughing at his mother's jokes about my simple background. Then came the affair. I'm not stupid. I noticed the late nights, the secret phone calls, the cologne that wasn't his. Her name was Vanessa, a 24-year-old assistant at his company. Blonde, ambitious, exactly the type who'd sleep with a married man for career advancement. I hired a private investigator and got proof. Photos of them at hotels, restaurants, her apartment. I could have confronted him then, but something stopped me. I wanted to see how far he'd go. Turns out, pretty far. But what Marcus didn't know was that karma was already working behind the scenes. The annual Vanguard Enterprises Gala was approaching. It was the biggest event in the tech industry, 400 elite guests, celebrities, investors, politicians. Black tie, exclusive, the kind of event people paid $50,000 a plate to attend. As the founder and CEO, I personally approved every name on that guest list. And this year, I added one specific name, Marcus Hale, +1. I sent the invitation to our home address, watched him open it at breakfast. His eyes went wide. He said, "Babe, you won't believe this, I got invited to the Vanguard Gala. Do you know how exclusive this is? This could change my entire career." I smiled sweetly and asked how he got invited. He said obviously someone at the company recognized my potential. Probably heard about the campaign I'm working on. Sure Marcus. Sure. He was so excited, talking about networking opportunities, important people he'd meet. Then he said, "Oh, I'm bringing Vanessa as my +1, she deserves to experience events like this." My blood ran cold. I said, "What about me?" He looked at me like I'd asked something ridiculous. He said, "Alara, this is a professional event, you wouldn't fit in, you wouldn't know how to talk to these people, you'd embarrass me. Just stay home." I nodded quietly, went to my office, and made a phone call. I told my assistant to prepare 2 things. First, a seat assignment placing Marcus and Vanessa at the absolute worst table in the venue. In the back corner near the kitchen. Second, a special announcement for the evening. Something Marcus would never forget. The night of the gala arrived, and I got ready in secret at my downtown office. I had my stylist transform me, hair swept into an elegant updo, makeup flawless, and a custom ivory gown that cost more than Marcus made in 6 months. I looked powerful. I looked like a CEO. And tonight, everyone would finally know the truth. I arrived at the gala separately, walking in through the VIP entrance while Marcus and Vanessa were stuck in the regular line. The ballroom was stunning, crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, champagne towers. I greeted investors and board members, everyone calling me Ms. Voss, treating me with the respect I'd earned. Then I saw him across the room. Marcus in his rented tuxedo, thinking he looked important, with Vanessa clinging to his arm in a dress that was trying too hard. They were at table 37, the worst seat I'd arranged. I watched him scan the room, trying to spot influential people to network with. He hadn't seen me yet. I waited, letting the evening progress, watching him get increasingly frustrated at his terrible table placement. During cocktail hour, I positioned myself near the main floor, glass of champagne in hand, talking with a senator. That's when Marcus finally spotted me. He did a double take, clearly not recognizing me at first, then his face registered shock. He whispered something to Vanessa, then started walking toward me with this confused, angry expression. He said, "Alara, what are you doing here? Who let you in?" I smiled calmly and said I was invited, Marcus, just like you. His face turned red. He said, "This is a professional event, I told you to stay home, you're embarrassing me, how did you even afford that dress?" People around us started watching. I said quietly, "Maybe we should discuss this privately." But Marcus was on a roll now, his ego bruised, his control slipping. He said, "No, we're discussing this right here. You crashed an elite event you don't belong at, wearing a dress you probably rented, trying to what, impress people? You're making a fool of yourself." Vanessa giggled behind him. And that's when I made my move, the move that would destroy everything he thought he knew. I looked Marcus directly in the eyes and said very calmly, "I didn't crash this event, Marcus, I'm on the guest list, would you like to see?" He scoffed and said, "Fine, show me, prove you belong here." I gestured to a staff member who immediately brought over the official guest registry on a tablet. I pointed to my name, Alara Voss, founder and CEO, Vanguard Enterprises. +1. Marcus stared at the screen like it was written in a foreign language. He said, that's obviously a mistake, some woman with your same maiden name." I smiled and said, "No mistake, that's me. I am Alara Voss. I founded Vanguard 7 years ago." His face went pale. Vanessa's smile disappeared. People around us had gone completely silent. Watching this unfold, Marcus stammered, "You're lying, this is insane, you're a consultant, you work from home." I said, "No Marcus, I'm the CEO of a $200 million company, I've been running it our entire marriage while you thought I was doing basic consulting work." Everything clicked in his brain at once. He said, "Wait, if you own Vanguard, then the apartment, the car, everything?" I nodded. "All paid for by my company, by my money, you've been living off my success for 7 years while treating me like I was worthless." His hands started shaking. He said, "You're lying, trying to humiliate me." That's when I decided to ask for something I knew would push him over the edge. I said, "Marcus, since I'm actually the host of this event, I'd like to sit at the VIP table up front, would you mind switching seats with me?" It was a test, a final chance for him to show any decency. Instead, he snapped. He grabbed a glass of red wine from a passing waiter, and before I could react, he poured the entire glass over my ivory gown, the wine cascading down the expensive fabric, ruining it completely. The ballroom gasped. If you're loving this revenge story, smash that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling me what you think Marcus deserves. The red wine dripped down my gown, staining the ivory fabric like blood. 400 elite guests stood frozen in shock. Marcus was breathing hard, his face twisted in rage and humiliation. He said, "There, now everyone can see what you really are, a liar, a manipulative fraud trying to make me look bad." Vanessa was backing away slowly, realizing she'd attached herself to a sinking ship. I stood there, wine dripping, completely calm. Because this was exactly what I needed. Marcus had just publicly assaulted me in front of senators, tech moguls, investors, and media. I looked at him and said very quietly, You just made the biggest mistake of your life." He laughed bitterly and said, "Oh really? What are you going to do? You've already humiliated yourself enough." I didn't respond. I simply walked toward the stage where the evening's program was about to begin. My assistant met me backstage with a backup gown I'd prepared just in case, because I always had contingency plans. I changed quickly, composed myself, and waited for my introduction. The MC took the microphone and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the founder and CEO of Vanguard Enterprises, the visionary who revolutionized data security and built this incredible company, Ms. Alara Voss." The spotlight hit me as I walked onto the stage. The applause was thunderous. I could see Marcus standing in the crowd. His face completely drained of color as the reality crashed down on him. I wasn't lying. I wasn't delusional. I was exactly who I said I was, and he'd just publicly humiliated his wife, who happened to be one of the most powerful women in the tech industry. I took the microphone, smiled at the crowd, and began my speech. But I wasn't going to let Marcus off easy. Not after 7 years of belittling, cheating, and cruelty. Tonight, justice was about to be served ice cold. I stood at the podium, 400 pairs of eyes on me, and began. I said, "Thank you all for attending Vanguard's 7th annual gala. 7 years since I founded this company with nothing but a patent and a dream. I talked about our achievements, our growth, our mission. Then I shifted tone. I said building a company is challenging, but you know what's harder? Building a company while hiding your success from your own husband because you know he can't handle a wife who's more successful than him." The room went completely silent. I continued, "For 7 years I've lived a double life, CEO by day, invisible wife by night, funding a lifestyle for a man who called me worthless, who cheated on me with his assistant, who just poured wine on me because I asked for a better seat at my own event." I paused, let that sink in. Marcus was trying to disappear into the crowd, but people had stepped away from him, creating a circle of space like he was contaminated. I said, "I've tolerated disrespect, betrayal, and cruelty because I believed in the sanctity of marriage, but what happened tonight crossed a line." I looked directly at Marcus. I said, "Marcus Hale, as of this moment, you are terminated from all positions, contracts, and associations with Vanguard Enterprises and our subsidiary companies. Security will escort you out. The penthouse apartment you're living in, company property, you have 72 hours to vacate. The car you drive, being repossessed tomorrow. Every asset you think you own is actually mine, and you're about to find out what life looks like when you actually have to earn it yourself." 2 security guards appeared at Marcus's sides. He tried to protest, shouting that I couldn't do this, that he'd sue, that this was illegal. I said, "Marcus, I have 7 years of documented financial records showing I funded your entire life, plus evidence of your affair with a company employee which violates our ethics policies. I suggest you leave quietly before I press charges for assault." Vanessa had already disappeared, probably running to save her own career. Marcus was escorted out, still shouting, while 400 guests watched in stunned silence. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Within 24 hours, Marcus's humiliation had gone viral. Someone had recorded the wine-throwing incident and the subsequent reveal on their phone. It was all over social media, news outlets picked it up, headlines reading tech CEO publicly destroys cheating husband who assaulted her at gala. Marcus became a cautionary tale, the embodiment of male fragility and unearned confidence. His company fired him immediately for the PR nightmare. Vanessa was also terminated and blacklisted in the industry. No one wanted to be associated with them. Marcus tried calling me 300 times in 2 days. I blocked him. He showed up at Vanguard headquarters and was removed by security. He sent emails begging for forgiveness, claiming he didn't know, that he was sorry, that we could work through this. Too late. My lawyer served him with divorce papers that same week. The settlement was simple, he got nothing. The prenup I'd insisted on 7 years ago, which he'd signed without reading because he assumed he'd always be the breadwinner, protected everything. Every asset was mine. He'd leave the marriage with exactly what he brought into it, which was basically nothing. His mother Catherine called me, screaming about how I'd ruined her son's life, how I was a vindictive witch, how she always knew I was trouble. I let her rant, then calmly said, "Catherine, your son ruined his own life by being cruel to someone who loved him." I simply stopped enabling his delusions. "Have a nice day," I hung up. The divorce was finalized in 4 months. Marcus tried to fight it but had no grounds and no money for lawyers. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved back in with his mother, was working a retail job, and had become a social pariah. Vanessa had moved to another city to escape the stigma. Meanwhile, I was thriving. 6 months after the gala, my life had transformed completely. I'd stopped hiding, stepped fully into my role as CEO publicly, did interviews, appeared on magazine covers. Vanguard's stock price actually increased after the scandal because investors appreciated my transparency and strength. I became a symbol for women who'd been underestimated, who'd hidden their light to make mediocre men feel comfortable. I received thousands of messages from women sharing their own stories of being diminished by partners, family members, colleagues. It was heartbreaking but also empowering to know I wasn't alone. I started a mentorship program through Vanguard specifically for women entrepreneurs, providing funding, resources, and guidance. I wanted to make sure other women never had to hide their success like I did. As for Marcus, I heard he tried to write a tell-all book about our marriage, painting himself as the victim of a manipulative wife. No publisher would touch it. His reputation was too damaged, and frankly, no one wanted to hear a privileged man complain about his successful wife. One afternoon, almost a year after the divorce, I was leaving my office when I saw someone sitting on the bench outside the building. It was Marcus. He looked terrible, older, defeated, wearing cheap clothes. He stood up when he saw me and said, "Alara, please, just 5 minutes, I need to talk to you." Against my better judgment, I stopped. I said, "You have 2 minutes, Marcus, make it count." He said, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, I know I destroyed everything, but I need you to understand I was intimidated by you, I felt worthless compared to you, and instead of dealing with that, I tore you down to make myself feel bigger. I was wrong, I was cruel, and I'm sorry." I looked at him for a long moment. Part of me felt sad for the man he could have been if he'd dealt with his insecurity differently. But mostly I felt nothing. I said, "Marcus, I appreciate the apology, but it doesn't change anything. You had 7 years to be a partner, to support me, to love me for who I actually was. Instead you created a fantasy where you were superior and I was beneath you. You can't build a marriage on lies and cruelty." He nodded, tears in his eyes. I said, "I hope you learn from this, I hope you become better, but that growth doesn't involve me. Goodbye, Marcus." I walked away and didn't look back. 2 years after that gala, I'm sitting in my office on the 40th floor, looking out at the city that once felt like it was crushing me. Vanguard is now valued at over $500 million. We've expanded internationally, pioneered new security technologies, and employed over 800 people. I'm engaged to someone incredible, a fellow CEO who celebrates my success instead of resenting it, who treats me as an equal partner in every way. We're building something beautiful together, based on mutual respect, honesty, and genuine love. I never hear from Marcus anymore. Last I heard, he'd moved to another state, was working a normal job, and had started therapy. I genuinely hope he's found peace and learned something from our disaster of a marriage. As for me, I learned the most important lesson of my life: never make yourself smaller to make someone else comfortable. I spent 7 years hiding my brilliance, funding a man's lifestyle while he belittled me, accepting cruelty because I thought that's what a good wife did. I was wrong. A good partner lifts you up, celebrates your victories, supports your ambitions. Anything less than that isn't love, it's a prison. The moment Marcus poured that wine on me was the moment I finally broke free. Was it humiliating? Absolutely. Was it the catalyst I needed to stop hiding? 100%. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best transformations. If you're in a relationship where you're dimming your light, where you're pretending to be less capable, less intelligent, less successful to protect someone's ego, please hear me, you deserve better. You deserve someone who's proud of you, who brags about your accomplishments, who wants to see you shine. Don't wait 7 years like I did. Don't fund someone's lifestyle while they treat you like you're worthless. Don't hide your brilliance for anyone. And if someone ever literally pours wine on you for asking for a seat at your own table, remember this: you own the table, you own the building, you own your destiny, and no one can take that from you unless you let them. What did you think of this story? If you've ever been underestimated or humiliated, hit like, subscribe for more stories of quiet revenge, and comment "never underestimate her" below. Turn on notifications because next story drops soon, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their worth isn't defined by how small they make themselves for others. What story should I tell next? Comment your suggestions and I'll see you in the next one.